Hello friends, welcome to the episode 6 of my pessimistic guide to anti-aging research. Today's topic is a curse of money, or rather how scientists get money for research. Having a PhD in science holds little value these days. There are so many of us with some sort of doctorate that we currently comprise about 2% of population. The number of people getting a degree in the USA grew almost 10 times since 50s. At the same time, the funding of biomedical research, when adjusted for inflation, remained flat for the last 20 years. So, the number of hungry intellectuals became higher, but the amount of bread stayed the same. This looks like a wonderful opportunity for the selection of the brightest or the survival of the fittest, which are not the same thing. Presently, the American science appears to follow the second path. A PhD can't just go out and prove his or her brilliance. The ideas for research must be first submitted to great temples of science like the National Institutes of Health, NIH, or the National Science Foundation. 2 or 3 times a year, investigators closet themselves in their offices to prepare grant applications. Every single little detail is critically important. The number of references, the number of pages, margins, fonts, format of biosketches. Whether sentences are too long, there is a risk to exceed reviewers' attention span. Whether illustrations are visually appealing, well, reviewers need something shiny to look at, etc. It is a matter of life and death because somehow these awards have become not only the icing on the cake as was originally intended, but the entire cake. The current system for funding of biomedical research was adopted in 1946. The National Institutes of Health had a humble beginning as a bacteriological lab in 1878. The early stages of the NIH evolution were rather benign until the creation of the Research Grant Office within the NIH in 1946. This office was charged with administering a program of extramural research grants. Today, the NIH is a monstrously big organization that controls every facet of scientific activity and, incidentally, the livelihood of all scientists, through awarding or withholding funding for research. Because of that, the modern community of scientists is divided into 2 classes: those who have and those who have not. Those who have funding enjoy decent positions, salaries, and happily attend conferences in various beautiful parts of the world. The grant applications are evaluated using time-honored peer review. The peer review process is a primary tool for maintaining quality of research utilized at multiple levels all the way up to publications. But please note that in case of publications, the reviewers evaluate the work that has been already done. In contrast, the NIH peer review judges the ideas for future research. The significance of a proposal may be deemed low with naturally disastrous consequences. The study can be called descriptive, pedestrian, or overly ambitious with equally negative connotations. If the applicant is not an independent researcher, it may also be a sufficient reason for rejection. An applicant may easily stumble on approach or be blamed for insufficient experience with certain techniques. The percentage of approved proposals is ever shrinking, and now only about 15–20% of grant applications receive funding. The reviewers are recruited from the scientific community. And there is nothing wrong with these people, except that they are commissioned to guide the future of science, a task for which none of them is qualified. Sure, these people are reasonably intelligent and can make a sound judgment in their fields of expertise. Fundamentally, though, they are by no means intelligent enough to predict, or worse, direct future science.
We knew that we had to monitor our enemies. We also come to realize that we need to monitor the people who are monitoring them.
Well, who's going to monitor the monitors of the monitors?
Regarding future discoveries and where they will come from, the reviewers can be safely considered legally blind. Also, let's not forget that to this day, most discoveries in biology are not really a result of the intellectual prowess of the researcher. Most of the time, scientists simply stumble on them or dig them out. In its website, the NIH claims credit for all successes of American science, although there is no evidence that achievements would be any worse without its interference. In fact, there are indications that America might have done much better. Out of 45 US located prize winners, for example, who agreed to participate in a study, 16 did not get any NIH funding for work that won them the prize. Considering the criteria utilized by NIH, the applications of those unfunded future laureates were probably either overly ambitious or mere fishing expeditions, or they themselves were labeled as not independent. Who knows? These days, the process of applying for grants has become so complicated that the NIH offers courses, seminars, and even books on how to apply and make the reviewers like your proposal. Scientists, therefore, need to learn new skills to sell their work and ideas to survive. The most natural question is, why? They are not in the advertising business, and by the way, this is not what they were born to do. The next most natural question is, does it help to make science better? I doubt that. All it does is to unpredictably cut funding for some labs for reasons that are based on mostly qualitative assessments, which are impossible to even dispute logically. All this creates an atmosphere of insecurity, because any lab can find itself on a precipice at any time. My own university is full of ghosts, faculty members who fail to secure continuous funding and have had to downsize or close their labs. While closure of individual labs is probably not a big deal, regular mini extinctions caused by the unpredictable ebbs and flows of grant money kill continuity of research and cause high turnover rate of highly trained specialists. Frankly, all this makes science a rather unattractive career choice for talented youngsters. This is not all, however. This system unleashes a truly terrible evil that threatens the very existence of productive science. Because the academic career and livelihood depend on whether a scientist gets funding, there is a grim necessity to produce results that would confirm preliminary findings or concept or else. It should be noted that we still know very little and that most of our ideas are bound to be wrong, because the object of our studies, life, is probably the most complicated thing in the universe. You want to know how little we know? For example, out of 20,000 something genes that we have in our genome, only 2,000 were studied to some degree. You want to know why? Primarily because it is costly and labor intensive, but also because the outcome of such studies is uncertain. If your gene turns out to be a mere nothing, then you will not be able to make a career out of it. No grant money, no advancement. Being wrong is lethal in contemporary science because it does not bring money, and therefore it is a luxury that nobody can afford. Researchers have families to feed, mortgages to pay off, and lifestyles, however miserable, to maintain. This necessity puts scientists in an untenable position, tempting many, if not all, to be more or less selective when generating and evaluating experimental data. In short, the existing model of financing of biomedical research is, and probably always has been, counterproductive. Therefore, it needs to be dismantled as soon as possible. It selects for respectable but ultimately non-scientific talents like the networking ability and the ability to compose good-looking application. Also, due to its very nature, it promotes mafia-style mentality and evolution. One of the possible solutions is giving money directly to the universities and research centers with no strings attached. Will scientists perish without the NIH guidance, or rather censure? There is every reason to believe that scientists will manage just fine. Freed from suffocating regulations and the need to beg for money again and again and again, science will likely flourish while costing considerably less. As a side benefit, the NIH monstrosity will no longer have a negative impact on science, and scientists will have more time to do real research on both sides of the fence. Yes, the researchers will know that their positions are secure, and they will be able to conduct unbiased research. Their work will be subject to a classical peer review quality control, of course, but without anyone judging what they can and cannot think or do. Their academic careers will be based not so much on eloquence, Ivy League connections, or the money wrestled from NIH, but on quality of research and on the impact of publications. Finally, I invite you to stop the video and read some remarkable passages from The Time Machine by great H.G. Wells, which, in my opinion, have some bearing on current state of affairs in science. Okay, I released enough bile for today. See you next time.